Ever looked up at the night sky and wondered if we're truly alone? We have, for centuries. And for just as long, we've told stories about what might be out there. Friendly aliens, hostile empires, cosmic horrors, the possibilities are endless. But what if the stories weren't just stories? What if the universe is a lot more crowded, and a lot less friendly, than we imagine? What if humanity, in its relentless push outwards, finally poked something it shouldn't have? That's where our story begins. Not with a grand fleet of starships, or a desperate plea for peace. No, it starts with the chilling silence after the bombs fell. Not nuclear fire, mind you. Something far worse. Something that vaporized entire human colonies in the blink of an eye. Gone. Just dust and echoes where thriving communities once stood. And the worst part? No one knew why. Who could unleash such devastating power, and for what reason? The galaxy held its breath, waiting for the inevitable retaliation. Waiting for humanity to unleash its fury. But the retaliation never came. Because humanity was too busy trying to survive. See, we're not the galaxy's top dogs. We're not even middle management. We're the scrappy underdogs, the ones who clawed their way into space with ingenuity and a whole lot of luck. We're good at building things, good at adapting, and really, really good at surviving. But we're also small. Fragile. And when those colonies vanished, it sent a shockwave through what little galactic presence we had. Suddenly, we were vulnerable. Suddenly, we were prey, and then, the whispers started. Whispers of an ancient power, a force so terrifying it had been relegated to myth. A force that slumbered for eons, waiting to be awakened. A force known only as, the Dragons. Legend had it they were the true masters of the galaxy, beings of unimaginable power who shaped civilizations and extinguished stars. Legend also said they were incredibly protective of their territory. And humanity, in its expansion, had unknowingly stumbled into their domain. Our story follows a handful of survivors scattered across the galaxy. People like Anya, a resourceful engineer who lost everything in the attacks. People like Kai, a hardened pilot haunted by the faces of the colonists he couldn't save. People like Dr. Eris Thorne, a xenolinguist obsessed with uncovering the truth behind the dragons. They're all connected, bound by tragedy in a desperate need to understand what happened. They're on a collision course with a force they might not be able to comprehend, let alone survive. The question isn't whether humanity can fight back. The question is, can we even survive the awakening of the dragons? Because this isn't just a war for territory. This is a war for our very existence. And as those whispers grow louder, as the legends become reality, one thing is clear: humanity has made a terrible mistake. A mistake that could cost us everything. But perhaps, just perhaps, it's a mistake that could also force us to evolve, to become something more. Something stronger. Something that can stand against the dragons. But that's a story for another time. For now, the silence is broken. The dragons are stirring. And humanity is about to learn a very painful lesson. The comms crackle to life, a distorted voice cutting through the static. Mayday. Mayday. This is Colony Ship Odyssey. We are under attack. Repeat, under attack. Then, silence. Just the hiss of white noise and the faint, chilling echo of what sounded like screams. That was the last anyone heard from the Odyssey. It joined the growing list of ghost ships, silent testimonies to the unknown terror that had swept through the outer colonies. These weren't pirate raids. These weren't accidents. This was something different. Something that left no debris, no wreckage, just empty space and lingering fear. Anya stared at the flickering screen, the image of the Odyssey's distress signal frozen in time. She'd known some of the people on board. Families, friends, just trying to make a new life. Gone. Just like that. The knot in her stomach tightened. This wasn't just about lost colonies anymore. This was personal. She slammed her fist on the console, the metal groaning under the impact. "Damn it," she muttered, her voice thick with anger and grief. "Damn them all." Kai watched the news reports with a grim expression. The faces of the missing colonists flashed across the screen, their smiles frozen in happier times. He knew that look. The look of hope, of optimism. The look of people who believed they were safe. He'd worn that look himself, once. Before the attack on his own colony. He'd been piloting a supply run, a routine trip. He came back to find nothing. Just dust and the skeletal remains of buildings. He'd spent weeks searching, hoping against hope to find survivors. He found nothing. Now, he was just another ghost, haunted by the memories of what he'd lost. Doctor Thorne meticulously pored over ancient texts, his brow furrowed in concentration. He'd been studying xenolinguistics for decades, fascinated by the myths and legends of long-dead alien civilizations. He'd always believed there was truth hidden within those stories, whispers of a greater reality. And now, he felt like he was finally close to understanding. The symbols. The patterns, they were starting to make sense. The dragons. They weren't just a myth. They were real. And they were waking up. He just needed to decipher the final pieces of the puzzle, to understand their motives, their power. He needed to understand, before it was too late, the Galactic Council, what remained of it, was in chaos. Representatives from the surviving human settlements argued and bickered, each with their own theories, their own agendas. Some called for immediate retaliation, a desperate strike against an unknown enemy. Others argued for caution, for reconnaissance, for understanding. But no one could agree on what to do. Fear paralyzed them, the sheer scale of the threat leaving them impotent. They were like ants facing a wildfire, scrambling for safety, but knowing deep down that escape was impossible. Meanwhile, in the vast emptiness of space, something ancient stirred. A ripple of energy, a tremor in the fabric of reality. A single eye opened, a blazing star in the darkness. It gazed out across the galaxy, across the vast distances, and saw the intrusion. The tiny flicker of human expansion, a spark in the darkness. And it was displeased. The whispers became a roar, a cosmic symphony of rage. The dragons were awake. And the galaxy would tremble. Humanity's expansion had disturbed something it shouldn't have. And now, the price would be paid. But how high would that price be? No one knew. But one thing was certain, it would be a reckoning unlike anything humanity had ever faced. Anya cobbled together what was left of her salvage crew, a motley bunch of survivors hardened by loss and desperation. They scavenged derelict ships and abandoned stations, clinging to the fringes of known space. Every creaking bulkhead, every flickering light was a reminder of what they'd lost. But they pushed on, driven by a primal need to survive, and a burning desire for answers. Anya, practical and resourceful, became their reluctant leader. She wasn't a soldier, wasn't a politician. She was an engineer, good at fixing things, good at figuring things out. And right now, humanity needed fixing. Kai drifted from system to system, a ghost in his own ship, the Wanderer. He took any job he could find, hauling cargo, running errands, anything to keep moving, anything to avoid thinking about the past. He was a skilled pilot, one of the best, but his skills were now just a way to numb the pain. He'd seen too much, lost too much. The faces of the dead haunted his dreams, their silent screams echoing in the emptiness of space. He was running from the dragons, running from the memories, running from himself. But he knew, deep down, that he couldn't run forever. Dr. Thorne locked himself away in his dusty archive, surrounded by stacks of ancient texts and holographic projections. He felt the weight of the galaxy on his shoulders. He knew the truth, or at least, he was close to it. The dragons weren't just powerful. They were ancient. They'd been around since before humanity even crawled out of the primordial soup. They'd shaped galaxies, guided civilizations, and extinguished stars. Their power was beyond human comprehension. And they were angry. He'd discovered fragments of prophecy. Warnings about humanity's expansion, about the awakening of the slumbering giants. He just needed to find the key, the Rosetta Stone that would unlock the secrets of the dragons. The Galactic Council, fractured and ineffective, tried to project an image of strength. They scrambled together a fleet, a patchwork of hastily armed freighters and repurposed transport ships. It was a symbolic gesture, a desperate attempt to show the galaxy that humanity wouldn't just roll over and die. But everyone knew it was a suicide mission. They were sending lambs to the slaughter. They were hoping to buy time, hoping for a miracle. But miracles were in short supply these days. Meanwhile, the dragons stirred. Not with grand fleets or fiery explosions. Their power was more subtle, more insidious. They manipulated the very fabric of space, warping hyperspace routes, disrupting communications, sowing chaos and fear. They didn't need to announce their arrival. Their presence was felt, a chilling dread that crept into the hearts of every human, a primal fear that resonated deep within their DNA. They were coming. And when they arrived, they wouldn't ask questions. They would judge. And humanity would be found wanting. Anya's crew stumbled upon a hidden data cache, a forgotten outpost on the edge of known space. It was a treasure trove of information, old star charts, forgotten histories, and something else. A recording. A message from a long-dead alien civilization. They spoke of the dragons, of their power, of their wrath. And they spoke of a weakness. A way, perhaps, to appease them. Anya's heart pounded. Could this be it? Could this be the key to humanity's survival? She didn't know. But she knew one thing: they had to try. They had to follow this lead, no matter where it took them. Because the fate of humanity might just depend on it. But what they didn't know was that they were being watched. The dragons knew. They had seen the flicker of hope, the tiny spark of defiance. And they were not amused. The Wanderer shuddered as Kai wrestled with the controls. He'd picked up a distress signal, a faint cry for help from a small research vessel caught in a strange spatial anomaly. He almost ignored it. He was tired, jaded, his faith in humanity worn thin. But something about the signal, a desperate edge to the voice, made him change course. He found the vessel adrift, its hull scarred, its crew missing. But the ship's logs, they told a chilling tale. They hadn't just stumbled into an anomaly. They'd been pulled into it. And they'd seen something. Something that defied explanation. A structure, vast and ancient, drifting between dimensions. A structure that hummed with unimaginable power. A structure that resonated with the same energy signature as the dragons. Dr. Thorne's research hit a dead end. The ancient texts spoke of a way to appease the dragons, a ritual, a sacrifice. But the details were vague, shrouded in symbolism and metaphor. He needed something more, something concrete. And then, he found it. A hidden chamber, buried beneath the ruins of an ancient alien city. Inside, a single artifact. A crystal, pulsating with a faint light. It resonated with the same energy as the dragons, but differently. It felt familiar. Almost human. He touched it, and a wave of images flooded his mind. Visions of the dragons, their power, their purpose. And then, a single, terrifying truth. The dragons weren't just guardians. They were farmers. And humanity was the crop. Anya and her crew followed the coordinates from the alien recording, a treacherous journey through uncharted space. They faced asteroid fields, pirate attacks, and the constant, gnawing fear of the dragon's wrath. Finally, they reached their destination. A desolate planet, scarred and barren. But beneath the surface, they found it. A vast complex, built by the same ancient civilization that had sent the warning. Inside, they discovered the truth about the dragon's weakness. It wasn't a weapon. It wasn't a ritual. It was something far more disturbing. Humanity wasn't just invading the dragon's territory. Humanity was interfering with their harvest. The research vessel's log spoke of a gateway, a portal to another dimension. Kai, driven by a newfound sense of purpose, decided to find it. He knew it was a suicide mission, but he didn't care anymore. He had to know the truth. He had to understand what the dragons were, what they wanted. He found the gateway, a swirling vortex of energy. He hesitated for a moment, then took a deep breath and plunged into the unknown. Doctor Thorn, clutching the crystal artifact, raced against time. He knew what the dragons were planning. He knew what they needed. And he knew he had to stop them. He had to warn humanity. But the dragons were already aware of his discovery. They had been watching him, manipulating him, guiding him towards the truth. They needed him. They needed the artifact. Anya and her crew discovered a hidden chamber within the ancient complex. Inside, they found rows upon rows of pods. Human-sized pods, filled with a strange, glowing liquid. And inside each pod, a human. Unconscious. Connected to the complex by a network of wires and tubes. They were being harvested. Their life force, their energy, being drained and channeled towards something unimaginable. Shattered, the glowing liquid spilling out. It wasn't a lethal shot, but it was enough. The human inside stirred, their eyes fluttering open. Confusion, then fear, then a spark of understanding. Anya yelled at them, "Wake up! Fight!" Kai, deep within the dimensional gateway, found himself in a realm of pure energy. He saw the dragons as they truly were, not just physical beings, but cosmic entities, woven into the fabric of reality itself. He understood their purpose, their harvest. They weren't just taking life force. They were taking something more. They were taking essence, the very spark of consciousness, the unique energy that made each human, each being, who they were. And he realized something else. The gateway wasn't just a portal. It was a conduit. A way to disrupt the harvest. He pushed his ship, the Wanderer, to its limits, channeling all its power into the gateway, creating a feedback loop, a ripple of disruption that spread outwards, through the dimensional plane, into the dragon's network. Dr. Thorn, clutching the crystal artifact, stood before the dragons. They reached for it, their power radiating outwards, trying to pull it from his grasp. But he held on tight. He understood now. The crystal wasn't just a key. It was a part of the dragons themselves, a fragment of their consciousness, their connection to the harvest. He raised the crystal high, channeling his own energy, his own will, into it. He wasn't trying to appease them. He was trying to sever their connection. He focused on the image of humanity, not as a crop, but as a species, resilient, defiant, full of life. He poured his own essence into the crystal, amplifying the ripple that Kai had created. The dragons roared, their power fluctuating, their control over the harvest weakening. The humans in the pods began to wake, their eyes glowing with a newfound awareness. They broke free, their combined consciousness creating a surge of energy that resonated with the disruption from the gateway and the crystal. The dragons staggered, their forms flickering, their power waning. They were losing their grip on the harvest, but then, something unexpected happened. The ripple effect from the gateway and the crystal didn't just disrupt the dragon's harvest. It disrupted something else. Their connection to each other. The dragons, who were once a unified consciousness, fractured. Their individual personalities, their individual desires, emerged. They turned on each other, their cosmic fire now directed inwards, consuming themselves in a battle for dominance. Humanity, caught in the crossfire, could only watch in awe and terror as the cosmic giants tore themselves apart. In the aftermath, the dragons were gone. Not destroyed, but scattered, their unified power shattered. The harvest was over. Humanity had survived. But the victory was bittersweet. They had disrupted the dragons' plans, but they had also unleashed something unpredictable. The individual dragons, now free from the collective, were still immensely powerful. They were out there, scattered across the galaxy, their motives unknown. And humanity, weakened and scattered itself, was now facing a new, even more terrifying challenge. Not a unified empire, but a legion of cosmic gods, each with their own agenda. The galaxy was silent, holding its breath. The dragons were gone. But the real war was just beginning.